Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the First and Long College Football Podcast. I'm your co-host, Marcus Carter. I am flying solo tonight. Mason is working on some other stuff, and we're honestly just still trying to kind of put some stuff together for you guys and brainstorming a few ideas. So, uh, I ask everybody that's watching if you think of something that could help us serve you better, please let us know because this is the People's Podcast, and we're just a couple of college football fans, and all we're trying to do is talk some college football in our free time. And here it is, July 13th, 2023. It's the middle of the summer. It's hot outside. There's baseball on, and that's about it. So if we can all get together, hopefully once a week or so, until the season starts and talk some college football, I just feel like that will help pass the time. And we're just 50 or so days away from week zero kickoff, and I know we cannot wait to get that started. But we are so glad that you're here on the First and Long college football show. And this is going to be this week in college football. And in this segment, I'm just going to kind of run down some news stories that are going on this week in college football, and actually a lot going on. As a matter of fact, we just had uh, the Big 12 media days. Um, and it didn't disappoint. I was actually pretty entertained with the Big 12 media days. Uh, Brett Yormark uh, came out and talked in Arlington, the site of the Big 12 championship this year, and continued his uh, mantra. Right, they're open for business, and it, I like this guy. I feel like he's gonna bring some energy to that job, and he seems like he's got a young soul, and he feels it feels like this guy has got a vision for what he's trying to do here. Didn't want to talk a whole lot uh, about specifics about growing the conference, but um, gosh, you can't help but read uh, Colorado, talking about the Big 12 and the Big 12 talking about Colorado, and um, man, it just seems like you know those two are going to be one um, sooner than later, but not happening this year, uh, and more than likely not happening next year. But I could definitely see Colorado taking a step over there to the Big 12. Um, some other news out of Arlington. I thought that the Texas Longhorns and Steve Sarkisian uh, really put it all out there, and it seems like they have really accepted the fact that uh, they're going to be hunted this year, and they're a favorite for a reason, and they know it. They know they should win. Um, Anything less than a Big 12 championship this year, I feel like is an absolute failure. Uh, and going into the SEC next year, you've got to be grabbing some momentum, and I feel like Texas is set up to do that. Steve Sarkisian also talked about Quinn Ewers and talked about Quinn's first year as the signal caller for the Texas Longhorns last year, and everybody knows he was hurt there for a little while, and Hudson Card stepped in and played for him, and played decent at times and not so decent at other times, and honestly, the same was true for Quinn Ewers. He had some really high moments. Um, I know for I guess about the first quarter of that Alabama game, we all felt like holy cow, who is this guy? And then he got hurt, and um, but Sark really emphasized the point that no first year quarterbacks ever do very well in his system, and he would have just as soon Quinn Ewers had somebody to sit behind and watch last year. Um, Quinn said himself at media days that there were times that in last fall camp that he was coming to the line and he didn't even know the play that they had called. And he says that this year, even if his wide receivers don't know the play or don't know where they're supposed to be, he can direct everybody on the offense and knows everybody's position this year. So it sounds like Quinn is going to have a much better grasp of the offense. Uh, we all know he's a very talented guy, and he's from the state of Texas. Played high school ball in Texas. Um, him him going to Ohio State and then going to Texas was not running away from anything. He's running towards the pressure uh, going back to Texas. So he seems like he's embracing that, and that's what it's going to take if you're going to be an elite quarterback in college in a Power Five conference or really any conference. That's what it's going to take. You got to have confidence, and whereas he didn't have that last year, I think that it seems as though he's going to take a step forward in that aspect. In other news, we all have been hearing about the Northwestern Pat Fitzgerald situation. I had put out a video on our channel for you guys a couple days ago, just a quick little video giving an update, and I've got another update now. So heard today that Pat Fitzgerald is in the process of lawyering up. Says he's going to get a lawyer, and um, you know, it's kind of a murky situation a little bit because he was handed a 2-week suspension, and that was after the review of the 6-month investigation that took place. So, with all that being said, they turned around and fired him, and um, you can't say they didn't have cause. They obviously had cause. No matter what you think about the situation, this is 2023. You know, you're not going to get away. There's no coming back from something like this. Um, More than likely, I don't think we'll ever see this in a courtroom. It'll more than likely be settled outside. But you know, maybe Pat Fitzgerald joins the Nick Saban crew for um, you know damaged coaches over there in Tuscaloosa and becomes an analyst, a defensive analyst there. Um, who knows? That it seems like that's kind of like coaching rehab out there. So um, Pat Fitzgerald is obviously he says he didn't know about all this stuff. Um, we're just going to have to see how those things work out. I heard that the president and the athletic director met with all of the players and apparently had like a locker room style meeting behind closed doors. And from what I understand, a lot of the players were very, very unhappy with this situation and very unhappy with the outcome. They've had 3 recruits decommit. Um, they got players that I'm sure are looking to transfer out. And you've got to remember now, uh, with this transfer portal era that we're in, the rules have changed. Okay. So you've got a 30-day window to leave a school after a coach is fired or leaves. So every player on that roster has an opportunity to transfer out without penalty and have immediate eligibility within the next 30 days or within 30 days of him being fired. Doesn't sound good, right? That sounds like a disaster waiting to happen. Um, and say all these players do leave. Say they do leave. Where are you going to get them all back? How are you going to get them all back? How are you going to get the numbers back, I guess is what I'm saying. I think this is going to be a mass exodus um, because they're not bringing Pat Fitzgerald back. It's not happening. He's gone. You don't fire somebody and then hire him back. That's not how this works. So players are unhappy. Um, uh, it's not looking good for Northwestern this year, right? It's going to be an interesting Big Ten Media Days. It really is. It's going to be interesting. So what they've done for coaching for the 2023 season in place of Pat Fitzgerald is they have promoted David Braun to interim coach. David Braun was the defensive coordinator. Not a ton of experience there at Northwestern. This guy came from the FCS level, um, won 2 FCS national championships in the last 4 years at North Dakota State. Was the 2021 FCS Coordinator of the Year. Uh, so, I mean, he mastered that level, and now he's at Division One, and now he will be thrown into the fire. Uh, and I haven't looked at an entire Northwestern schedule, but it's in the Big Ten, so it's not going to be easy, right? Um, they won one game last year, so not looking good. Northwestern, I hope they have enough players to play come the fall, because who's going to transfer there? Interesting situation to just kind of keep an eye on, and we will definitely do that for you here at the First and Long podcast. And if you don't mind, anybody who watches this, please subscribe and please like the video. That's a big help to us, and we're just a couple of average college football fans, and we're looking to bring you some news and some entertainment and entertain ourselves, and we're just out here having fun. So if you could, if you're having fun, if you like the video, or if you don't, that's okay. Go ahead and subscribe and like anyway. How about that? Uh, and then leave me a comment on how I can make it better, and I will try to do that for you. Um, Continuing forward, and this is my last topic for the day. It's the dog days of summer. We don't have a ton of college football news, but I definitely wanted to get on here and talk about these stories because I feel like they are important, and they're stories that are going to carry on throughout the year. Everything that we're talked about today, but um, one thing that I wanted to talk about was the University of Georgia and their issues. It's been well documented that the players and one staffer apparently. Um, well, you got to take it back. Really, you got to take it back to right after their second national championship. Everybody knows that there was a car wreck that night, and um, it was a player that had passed away and a staffer that was with him, and just a horrible situation. Not something you ever want to see, but it is something that happens. These two people were somewhat famous, and so it's really in the news. But that kind of leads us to some other issues that we've had in the off season with the Georgia Bulldogs. Look, it's no secret they got a bunch of guys that like to drive really fast. Okay, uh, we all wanted this as fans, or most of us did. Wanted these college kids to make this money, and I am not in any way against these college kids making money, but um, there's gonna for every you know situation like this, there's going to be a reaction, and uh, the reaction is you give a bunch of college age kids a bunch of money, they're going to buy sports cars, they're going to be real fast. Um, there is a racing culture that just in general, not just in Georgia, but these days it just seems like these cars are so fast, right? I mean, they are. I've got a truck out in the driveway right now that's fast, and it's fun. It's fun to drive, but um, I'm 30 years old. My driving fast days are done, um, and I made it, and I got a couple speeding tickets. Okay, um, in my years, and had my fair share of being a young man. Okay, so I totally understand that aspect of it, and I don't want to come across as somebody who's pointing at somebody else and saying, how dare you? Because you know what, many of us young guys would do the same exact thing if we were that young and we were in that situation and had that much money. Um, so, is it a problem? it seems to be habitual, right? Uh, it's been several players with the speeding issue. Um, and look, there's a big difference between going 15 over and going 40 and 50 over. Okay. And some of these guys are going really, really fast, and there's no other explanation for going that speed other than the fact that you're doing some kind of racing. Kirby Smart has definitely addressed these things. Um, it's you can tell a teenager and somebody who's 20, 21 years old, you can tell them over and over something, right? But getting into stick is a whole nother thing, and um, there's going to be probably a suspension or two served on some speeding issues for certain players, that stuff that's happened in the off season. So I fully expect, which it's not going to matter because Georgia doesn't play anybody the first couple weeks of the year. But um, the point is, I don't feel as though that there is a full on culture issue per se, uh, but there is obviously some type of speeding issue. Now, with all that being said, I know everybody's heard about the Atlanta Journal Constitution and their, how do we put this, less than stellar investigative journalism work that they put out in the paper regarding Georgia, and basically saying that Georgia has a culture issue as far as sexual assault, and basically saying that Kirby Smart knew about it, and he's actively covering something up or whatever it is. And you can go read the news story for yourself, and you'll see. But the problem with the story is that a lot of facts were left out, and so now you've got the University of Georgia, who has written a 9-page letter, and I'm sure it was typed up by lawyers, the legal department, um, demanding a retraction from the AJC, and saying that if the what they put out is not retracted, that they'll be suing with a defamation suit. Um, so things are really heating up in that area. Sparks are flying, uh, and hey, the old rule is where there's smoke, there's fire, and we might be having a fire there in that situation. And ever since Kirby Smart has became the head coach at University of Georgia, um, and that was back in 2016. Um, it just seems like something's there, like there's an issue, and you got to kind of go back to 2015 and 14 and 13 before you can really understand the situation, because as many people remember, Mark Richt coached at Georgia for a long time, and Mark Richt and the AJC had a great relationship. They did, and Mark Richt was not somebody who minded a lot of journalists and media coming and watching practice. You and I could show up and go watch practice back then. Um, so you know, whenever Kirby came in, Kirby cut that off like immediately. Like, nope, you'll get however many minutes we say, on when we say to do it, on what day, and we'll control what's going on at practice whenever you watch, and even who's out there on the field when you watch. So they went from like an all access pass in Athens to, uh, okay, well, you can wait outside. Um, and it ruffled some feathers the wrong way. I don't doubt that a bit. There was a Atlanta Journal Constitution has been around a long time. It's an old newspaper. I mean, who the hell even reads a newspaper anymore? I know I don't. Uh, yeah, I'm not sure if they were looking for a reaction here, but it seems as though the reaction is negative, and I guess the old saying is any publicity is good publicity, and yes, that's true. I'm not some kind of PR expert, but uh, and have no need for a PR expert, but it just seems to me like it's a bad business move for a paper that's based in the state of Georgia in Atlanta to get on the opposite side of the Georgia Bulldogs whenever Georgia has created all this momentum and everything's going well on the football field and in the football program. So it's going to be interesting to watch. A lot of Georgia fans are pretty upset with the AJC. Dog Nation is part of that. Um, so there'll be some good men that uh, probably get the brunt end of this and probably don't deserve it. But this was a bad piece, folks. It was a bad investigative journalism piece that left out. Investigative journalism is supposed to tell you the story and let you decide. And it seems like they told you the story they wanted you and basically decided for you. Um, Very bad piece, and I definitely understand why Georgia fans and Coach Kirby Smart are upset, and I hope that they get that straightened out. Couple more things. Big 12 Media Days, just I wanted to follow up with. Um, there's no shortage of confidence in Lubbock, Texas, and we haven't done our Texas Tech review, and we're going to do that soon. But man, I'm pretty confident in Lubbock as well in this conference. Um, the more and more that I learn about Texas Tech, the more I feel like if Texas slips up, man, they're going to be right there. And I wouldn't be surprised at all to see Texas Tech and Texas play twice this year, once in the regular season and then once in Arlington at the Big 12 championship. So um, things are trending in the right direction for the Red Raiders. The Red Raiders seem to be feeling themselves. Uh, so that's going to be interesting to watch. I can't wait. They got some great games this year, and Lubbock, whenever they're winning, is just it's a great atmosphere. Um, and Texas people love their football, so I suspect that the stadium will be packed out throughout the year, and it's going to be a fun year. I cannot wait to see it. Um, in other news, Oklahoma State and Mike Gundy, uh, the complaint tour continues for Mike Gundy. And I love Mike Gundy. I do. He's been there a long time, and you know, I'm a man. I'm 40. Who can forget that, right? That's just epic. And somehow this guy, it seems like he just doesn't, frankly, doesn't give a damn about recruiting, and somehow is one of the most consistent coaches. I mean, you can just about mark him down for 8 wins every year. It seems like. Um, so we'll see. We'll see. I'm not super confident in him this year, but uh, his complaint tour continued, complaining about Bedlam ending. He was really upset about that. And, you know what? This is folks get used to it because I think the conference restructuring has just begun. Maybe we'll stay like this for a year or so. It sounds like the Big 12 is really pursuing anybody that they feel like would benefit them. Well, thank you so much for joining This Week in College Football. I'm your co-host Marcus Carter, signing off for the first and long college football show. Please please subscribe, and we are going to keep it rolling over here, and we will see you next week. Keep an eye out for the rest of those Big 12, and coming up soon, the Pac 12 2023 season previews. Have a good one. Good night.